Malcolm, what was the magic of the Amateur Cup?
I don't really know. It's just, for me, doing it so quickly in the senior foot, it was just such a wonderful moment, and being as it was the first time Enfield getting to Wembley as well, I suppose it's getting recognised. I did have said to me, and I know this has gone round to an old kind of joke as such. We, after the cup final, we had a reception from the council, and of course I had my arm in the sling, and all these people were coming up and saying to me, "Oh, we'll talk to you. Could you or anyone I recognise with your clothes on?" It's such a cliche, that people say, they can't recognise players when they're not in playing kit,
Pete, was it to do with playing teams you would normally face week in, week out?
I probably played in 5 semi-finals for various clubs that I played for, and it was the be-all, other than playing for England. Obviously, it was the be-all and end-all of my ambition was to play at Wembley. Winning at Wembley obviously was the next step up, obviously. And unfortunately, as you know, I lost 4 semi-finals. One of them, unfortunately, when I was at Walthamstow against Enfield. And the only one I won, I ended up getting injured 5 days before the final. And probably, if my wife was here, she'd probably say I was devastated, and probably was. And because the Amateur Cup final, especially at Wembley, was my main aim in the football world, if you like.
How did you get injured the week before?
Well, it was a Sunday lunchtime, I suppose. I was sitting watching in the lounge, watching telly, and I had my young 2-year-old son on my lap, and he fell asleep, and I decided to get up and put him down so that he could sleep comfortably. And as I turned to put him down, I didn't turn with my legs, if you like, bent. I turned with my hip, and crash bang wallop, the slip disc came into being, and I didn't really find out exactly what it was. I was laying on the floor, and I was shouting to the wife, and she shouted through the serving hatch, "Get up, stop messing about." I said, "I'm not messing about. Get Eddie Franklin on the phone." And eventually, after a week of osteopaths, chiropractors, faith healers, and the reason my wife reckoned I didn't get better for the faith healers, I had no faith. But I mean, I just had, and I even still to this day remember the name of the guy, the faith healer. It was a bloke called Fricker, and it was at Stamford Hill, not Stamford Hill, sorry. It was the other side of Tottenham anyway, and it was just a nightmare, really. And I suppose from the day one I knew I wasn't going to play. And as you already know, that 2-year-old boy that put me out of action 20 years later played at Wembley for Watford.
How did it make you feel seeing Steve play at
Brilliant.
Wembley?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Did
absolutely.
it exorcise the demons?
No, not completely. No, I didn't blame him. Obviously, I blamed myself for not doing the right thing. Unfortunately, they lost 1-0, same as Enfield. So if you like, it was revisited, wasn't it? But fantastic game, and he played really well. No, it was part of my life that was good in parts, but I didn't cry anyway. Inwardly, I did.
Yeah.
Malcolm, you made it onto the pitch at Wembley, but you had to leave early. What happened to you?
Well, all I can remember about after the game was where the coach actually comes into the stadium and they get on the coach and it goes out. We had to walk back across the ground with the doctor because he had phoned up to take me to hospital to have my arm plastered. And all I can remember is going across, and they're taking the goalposts down and putting rugby posts up because the week after it is the Rugby League Cup final at Wembley, and it just stuck in my mind. I couldn't believe on a Saturday evening, they're taking the goalposts down and putting the other posts up. But all I can remember was being run with a doctor, and we called in to his house in Winchmore Hill, where he phoned up someone from the hospital to get an anaesthetist and someone to plaster, and he took me on to hospital and got my arm x-rayed and plastered up, and then I went back to the reception, which was at Ferguson's old canteen.
You came off the pitch with a broken arm. You went out and played the second half outfield. Did you need much persuasion to go back out and play?
No. We had a bit of a problem when I first come off. As I say, Eddie Franklin, was one of the top in there, and he did it up, ready, and he said, well, it's up to you what you do. We'll do it up the best we can. But then the doctor come in and he wanted to have a look, and so he wanted to undo it all again. And I can always, Eddie saying to me afterwards, I could see you going whiter and whiter as they did it, took it off. But no, I don't, with no substitutes. No, that's what you did, as they've said in other things, you're on there as nuisance value. I was, as I say, I wasn't the fittest kind of person, and I not an outfield footballer, but as long as someone had to mark me, then it gave other people the same sort of room. Someone had to look out for you.
But as a nuisance, you nearly scored a couple of goals, didn't you?
So they tell me, yes.
Yes.
One was a header, I can remember, and I got a black eye instead.
Were you in pain at the time?
The pain was losing.
You just all caught up in the thing, more than words, but it's the same as any kind of thing like that. You're doing something else and you just forget about it. I know I took a couple of tumbles down the wing, and you could hear people, but you just got on. There was nothing else to do. But I think substitute goalkeepers come in either the following year or 2 years later. Whether my accident was anything to do with them bringing on just substitute goalkeeper, I don't know.
Pete, you were watching the game from the sideline. Do you think Enfield would have won without Malcolm's injury?
I'm pretty sure they would have done. Yeah, they would. The game, we ended up with Roy Thomas in goal. Roy was a striker. So I'm not saying it was wrong put him in goal, because knowing Roy, I can't really remember, he probably volunteered anyway, he'd do anything. But I remember years later Roy said, I won't say the exact words he said, but he's waiting all that time to play at Wembley and ended up in goal. So, it was disappointing in a way for him to end up playing in goal.
Because he was more like one of the best games He'd have for it.
Yeah, he played.
Well. He was really playing the first 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Royston was one of our best players, you
Yeah.
know, and to have to swap him like that, you know, both of us in the same position, but that what was.
Yeah, in hindsight,
yeah.
it might have been better to put someone else
Yeah,
in goal, possibly, but who knows?
There was no way I could have played in goal after bringing up, that everyone said, well, you and Moulay could have done better one-handed than two, but there's no way they would let me do it.
No, Roy did a good job in goal, but he didn't want to be there.